Hi, here's a wee story about my family again when they stayed in Warrington. This photograph here is of my mum, my dad and my gran. My gran is the mother of my father. Now, I'll try and explain that as we go along. Now, to give you an idea of the family, here's a bit out of the family tree that I've managed to dig up. Alexander Gemmell married a Margaret Stewart way back. He is my great-great-grandfather. He had a son called John Gemmell, who would be my great-grandfather. He married a Mary Coghill. From there they had a child. One of the children was James Gemmell. He'd be my grandfather. He also had a couple of, someone who was Daniel, other one was Henry, and so on. Go into that later on. But my grandfather here was married to Annie South, which was her. Now, he was the one that was my actual grandfather. He was killed in the Great War. So what he left was this James Gemmell. He was my father. He was the oldest in the family, apparently. He had a sister, Annie, which I mentioned before. This is Annie here. Her husband, William Boyle, was my godfather. My dad also had two brothers, William and Richard. But he also had another daughter, called Florrie. And that's Florrie here. We called her Auntie Flo. She was the youngest, apparently. And out of the lot, she was the quietest. I remember that. She's the kind of person, if you met her, you just loved her, and it was simple as that. She's one of these type. As I said before, Annie lost her husband, who was a truck driver. Florrie never ever married. Whether the war had something to do with that, I have no idea. But she stayed single all her life. Annie, on the other hand, they went everywhere together as two sisters who love each other's dead. I understand this photograph was taken in Blackpool, or so it was said in the back of one of the photos. They went everywhere together. They came to Scotland many a time to see their older brother, which was my dad. Of course, a while after that, Florrie passed away. But I'm going to try and give you a wee story about this, what happened. So, many years ago, I think you've seen this photograph before. That's me. I went back down, not that long ago, to visit the place where I was brought up. This was Cartwright Street. This is the top end of Cartwright Street. The rest of the Cartwright Street behind the car, it was demolished and it's now a big car park. But all the houses were the same on each side, all the way up. Mind you, these ones here, as you can see, they've been sort of done up, renovated and whatnot. Beautiful houses now, if you look them up in the net. But we had a house similar to this. And the front door here, that was the living room, so to speak, bedroom up the stair, and the room at the back. But you notice the brickwork. It's the same as that. That's the old windows, as you can see. All different now, eh? But all the Gemmells stayed in these houses. The Holroyds, you name them. All of our relatives, all in this road, this street. We were actually born in number 43. All our family, Roy, James, everyone except Heather. Heather was born in Scotland. And that's why a lot of the family tree was missing Heather's name, because they didn't have records in England at that time of the Scottish births. They were treated as separate, but now they're joined together. You can find out no matter where you go if you want to look up somebody. But if you can imagine, our family stayed in here, and across the road there used to be a wee chip shop. They called it Shaw's Chip Shop. They had done their living room out into a couple of deep fryers, that sort of thing. It turned it into a wee chip shop. And Florrie here was a great friend of the Shaws. And they more or less adopted her. Florrie moved into the house there with them. And of course, Mr. and Mrs. Shaw, they ran the shop, and obviously Florrie helped them. And she was telling me one of the times I went down to visit, she started showing me photographs, etc. And at the front here, you'd get an Air Force sort of troop carrier thing, but it was American. It would park here and a couple of lads would get out in American uniform, because over the back there was what they called Burton Wood Air Base. It was an American air base, bombers and all that sort of stuff. And what they did, they liked the chips and everything that was sold here. So they used to come here with a list saying, well, we'd like this made up, that blah, blah, blah. The biggest thing they liked was mushy peas and a fish supper. Florrie always says that was the biggest sale then. The chip pans now were non-stop to make up these lists, and that's where they got the bulk of their money from the Buttonwood American Air Base. When they come with a list, all they do be. Anyway, the air base sort of, at the end of the war, sort of closed down more or less at the end of the day. And there wasn't there much trade, so apparently, what Florrie told me, Mr. and Mrs. Shaw passed away, and Florrie was left with the shop. Of course, because of her own reasons, she didn't want to carry on. Maybe it was too much for her, I don't know. But she decided to stop the chip shop. So everything was cleared out, apart from the deep fryers. No fat or oil or whatever it is they had in there. There was nothing. It was completely clean. So when you went in the front door, all you saw on the left hand side was these two big deep fryers. And I remember Florrie, when we went down, see when she was showing me old photos of the American motors outside and the Americans coming down and wanting their fish suppers and their mushy peas, so sweet. And she says to me, well, Raymond, you're only young. If you want to leave it a year or so, it's up to you. You're quite welcome to come down here. You can have one of the rooms, whichever one you want. I'll teach you how to do the fryers and all that. You could make the chip shop into your own specific, whatever you want to do. I'm only doing that because you're, her brother's son. So think about it. Of course, I told my dad. And my dad looked at me and I says, I'm telling that's what Florrie says, your young sister. He says, Raymond, we made a decision many years ago to move to Scotland to start the BA factory there, along with a number of other people that stayed round here. So Scotland's our home. Later on, you can change your mind and do what you like. But meantime, Scotland is our home. So I left it at that, and that was that. So it gives you an idea, roughly, what happened there. Of course, a while after it, we decided to look up Flora. Where was she? Was she buried in Old Warrington Cemetery or what? So I went on a local forum for Warrington, and I noticed there was a woman. She made a wee sort of post saying that she has records of burials in various cemeteries. So if anyone wants to look something up, send me an email with the particulars and I'll try and look it up for you. So I did that. I mentioned Florrie, I mentioned the Holroyd families and so on. And she sent me back, she said, I have found a Florrie Gemmell in, I'll tell you the name of it now, if you can zoom in, Fox Covert, Stockton Heath. That's a cemetery, but I'd never heard of it. She says, if you wish, I have the layer number, you can see it there. I'm going there tomorrow. I'll take a couple of photographs and I'll send it to you an email. So I thanked her, of course. That following day, or she'd say night, there was a message for me. It was from this woman. And this is how I got that information there. Of course, wee Heather, my wee sister, saw it. She made a wee comment on there. This was all off the internet. And I saw the photograph, and right at the bottom of the headstone is Florrie Gemmell. Now the rest of the headstone, if I remember correctly, was the Wright family. There's about 3 or 4 in the grave, plus the last one was Florrie. So that was her lifelong friends who, Florrie moved in with them, and she was treated like a daughter there as well. But that's what happened to Florrie. I'll never forget that. So we tracked her down, and that's where she is. I always wanted to go back down to England because there's so much I would like to have seen. But I'm getting a wee bit past all the travelling now. So I'll just have to leave it there. But that gives you an idea, eh? My great-great-grandfather, a Scot, a well-known family. My grandfather, and so on. What I found out is all the males left Scotland to go down to England, and they all ended up in the Manchester, Salford area, and every one of them joined up to do their bit for their country, so to speak. The only person I can't find is Margaret Stewart. I've tried everything to try and get information about it, but I just don't know anything about it. Can't find anything. Everybody else I can find out. But that's another wee story about my dad's sisters. Florrie, I'll never forget her. And I'll never forget that street. No one really wanted for anything. Not that they weren't short anything. I mean, money was scarce, food was scarce. But the beauty of then, they all rallied round each other and helped each other. It's what you called family, but you're talking about the whole street. If one lost their husband in the war, they all rallied round to help, and so on and so forth. That's what you call family. Those days are sadly all gone now. But I still remember. So that's all I want to say now. So bye for now.